I didn't even realise that it was their 6th wedding anniversary until somebody mentioned it, and I thought, oh yeah, there wasn't much about it.
No, I don't think it's a great...
It began, strangely enough, with silence. Not the kind of silence that soothes, but the kind that scratches at the edges of the mind, leaving questions where answers should be. The 6th anniversary of Harry and Meghan's wedding passed with hardly a whisper, as though the world itself had forgotten what was once called a fairy tale union. No fireworks, no golden words of devotion, no carefully staged photographs to remind the public of the day. Windsor Castle echoed with gospel choirs and celebrity glamour. Only a faint acknowledgement here and there, the sort of absent-minded comment one makes when reminded of a birthday one had no intention of celebrating. Oh, yes, people said. It was their anniversary, wasn't it? It should have been a warning sign. For a couple whose entire existence once thrived on spectacle and attention, invisibility was unnatural. But that quiet moment became the soil in which a much darker story took root. For where silence reigns, suspicion flourishes, and into that fertile ground stepped Angela Levin. Angela Levin had long been a figure who could send shockwaves through royal conversations with a single phrase. Biographer, commentator, and provocateur, she had a reputation for dissecting the royals with the precision of a surgeon and the bluntness of a hammer. She had written books on them, analyzed their gestures, parsed their silences. And she had never been afraid to say aloud the things others only dared whisper. But this time, she reached deeper, cutting straight to the heart of the Sussexes' most carefully guarded secret: their children. Archie and Lilibet were supposed to be symbols of joy, continuity, and love. They were meant to embody the union that defied tradition and broke barriers, the children of a prince and an American actress who had rewritten the rules. And yet, from the beginning, nothing about their births aligned with the rhythms of royal history. There were no triumphant appearances on the steps of the hospital, no beaming doctors waving to cameras, no traditional medical bulletins assuring the nation that all was well. Instead, there was secrecy. There was a strange withholding, a deliberate refusal to do what every royal parent before them had done without question. At first, the world accepted it. Meghan and Harry said they wanted privacy, and privacy they were granted. But when privacy became secrecy, and secrecy became silence, the doubts began. Why no photographs outside the hospital? Why no witnesses to confirm the births? Why only carefully curated images, released weeks later, when the freshness of birth had long passed? Angela Levin did not just poke at these questions. She slammed them onto the table and demanded answers. She declared that speculation was no longer idle gossip, but a matter of accountability. If Harry wanted to silence the critics, if he wanted to prove once and for all that Archie and Lilibet were unquestionably his and Meghan's children, there was one simple way: DNA. A test. Cold, scientific certainty. Nothing more, nothing less. And yet, Harry refused. He railed. He thundered. He threatened lawsuits and hurled accusations at journalists and biographers alike. But he did not provide the one thing that would make the storm vanish. Every outburst, every lawsuit, every snarl of fury made him look less like a man confident in his truth and more like a man terrified of exposure. For if there was truly nothing to hide, why not take the test? Why not silence Angela Levin with facts instead of fury? The longer he resisted, the darker the whispers became. Levin herself went further, daring to voice what many had whispered only in private corners: that perhaps Lilibet was not Meghan's biological child at all. The mere suggestion was explosive. It was no longer about gossip magazines or idle chatter at dinner tables. It was about the very foundation of monarchy itself. For if Lilibet was not Meghan's, if surrogacy or substitution had been involved, then one of the Queen's celebrated great-grandchildren was not what the world had been told. The monarchy is not a celebrity brand. It is not an Instagram feed where image alone is enough. It is a constitutional institution built upon bloodlines, heritage, and the unbroken thread of lineage stretching back through centuries. Every royalty child born before had been presented with clarity, their legitimacy confirmed through public ritual. Kate Middleton had appeared, weary but radiant, on the hospital steps with all three of her children, continuing a tradition that reassured the public that their monarchy remained intact. Even Diana, whose life was filled with turbulence, had followed that ritual. But Harry and Meghan, they shattered it, and by shattering it, they left a void that suspicion rushed to fill. The whispers of surrogacy had never truly gone away. Observers recalled Meghan's pregnancy with Archie, noting the oddities of her baby bump, its sudden changes in size and shape, its strange stiffness in photographs. They remembered how the timeline of the pregnancy seemed uncertain, how photographs appeared staged, how nothing about the birth was ever truly confirmed. Those whispers had been dismissed, silenced as cruel speculation. But Levin revived them, giving them oxygen and credibility. She reminded the world that in the United Kingdom, surrogacy laws are not casual. They are strict, particularly when it comes to matters of inheritance and succession. If Archie or Lilibet were born via surrogacy, and if those arrangements were not transparent, the implications for their place in the line of succession were staggering. They might not even be eligible. And so the demand grew louder. If there was nothing to hide, let there be proof. DNA proof, medical confirmation, something beyond carefully staged photographs and angry threats. But Harry refused, and every refusal painted him not as a wronged man, but as a man with secrets too heavy to bear. His fury, instead of silencing the storm, became its fuel. Each lawsuit, each outburst, each trembling voice of indignation confirmed what Levin implied, that Harry was cornered, not confident, that he was desperate, not dignified. His credibility unraveled thread by thread until even those who once defended him began to wonder. Meghan, meanwhile, stayed silent. Her lips, once quick with sharp rebukes and polished speeches, remained sealed. Some saw this as grace, as dignity in the face of cruelty. Others believed it was strategy, that she knew speaking would invite scrutiny she could not withstand. Her silence, in the end, became louder than Harry's rage. It became an absence that spoke volumes, an empty space filled with implication. The more one looked, the stranger the picture became. Why no medical witnesses? Why no official confirmation? Why such secrecy about the very thing the monarchy had always been transparent about? Every break with tradition, every refusal to follow. The simplest of royal protocols became in itself a kind of evidence. And Levin pressed this point with unflinching clarity. In centuries past, no royal child was recognized without verification. Why should it be different now? The stakes, as Levin reminded the world, could not be higher. For as long as Archie and Lilibet remain unverified, they remain at the center of a potential constitutional crisis. They are not simply Harry and Meghan's children. They are heirs, placed in the line of succession, recognized in official records. If doubt clings to their legitimacy, then the monarchy itself teeters. Parliament itself might one day be forced to act, to demand answers, to protect the sanctity of succession. And yet Harry, boxed in, seemed unable to choose a path, provide proof and risk humiliation if the whispers proved true, refuse proof and confirm suspicion by default. Every day that passed without resolution made the burden heavier, the whispers louder, the scandal deeper. This was not the Harry the world had once admired. Not the charming soldier who founded Invictus, not the cheeky prince who danced with joy among ordinary people. This was a man haunted by shadows, cornered by silence, unraveling before the world's eyes. Angela Levin, for her part, did not waver. She reminded audiences again and again that this was not gossip for gossip's sake. This was about accountability, about the legitimacy of children who may one day inherit roles of extraordinary importance. If the Sussexes wished to be taken seriously, if they wished their children to be respected, then they must submit to the same standards every royal before them had faced. Nothing more, nothing less. The storm now is not just about Archie or Lilibet. It is about the very idea of trust, about whether the public can accept the word of two people who have broken every tradition of transparency, about whether fury is enough to smother doubt. And with each passing day, the answer grows clearer. It is not. Because in the end, Harry and Meghan's silence has become louder than any scandal. It has become a vacuum, and vacuums demand to be filled. Into that void, Levin's words have poured, shaping a narrative that Harry cannot escape. He can rage, he can sue, he can lash out, but until proof is provided, doubt will reign. And in royalty, doubt is poison. It seeps, it spreads, it corrodes. It eats away at legacy, at legitimacy, at the very core of what monarchy stands for. Harry, once the rebel prince, now stands at the edge of this abyss. His marriage, once celebrated, fades into obscurity. His children, once symbols of joy, are now the heart of a storm that could shake the monarchy itself. And his fury, once a weapon, is now a wound. The choice remains before him, stark and unyielding. Provide proof and face whatever truth emerges, or refuse and let suspicion consume everything he holds dear. Until then, the whispers grow louder, the shadows grow darker, and the world waits, breath held, for the moment when silence finally breaks. Because the greatest scandal of all is not what has been said, but what has not been answered. And until Harry and Meghan answer, their story will never be a fairy tale again. From the outside, it looked like the fairy tale of the century. A dashing prince, born into the most famous family in the world, marries a glamorous American actress and whisks her away from the rigid traditions of Buckingham Palace into a life of freedom under the California sun. It was supposed to be a love story, a bold break from history, the reinvention of royalty for a modern age. But the truth has always been murkier, darker, and far more complicated than the glossy Netflix trailers and heavily staged photographs suggested. And now, years after Harry and Meghan promised they would carve their own destiny, that carefully curated narrative has begun to unravel in the most devastating way imaginable. At the center of this unfolding storm is a woman who has long been one of the Sussexes' fiercest critics. Angela Levin, a royal biographer with a sharp tongue and an even sharper pen. She has followed Harry's journey for decades, chronicled his highs and lows, and dissected his every choice with a mixture of fascination and skepticism. But nothing could have prepared the royal world for the bombshell Angela recently dropped, a claim so incendiary, so deeply personal, that it has sent Prince Harry into a fury unlike any he has ever displayed in public. This is no longer about media intrusion, gossip, or family feuds. This is about the legitimacy of his children, Archie and Lilibet. Angela Levin has dared to go where few have gone before. She has hinted, suggested, and now outright declared that there are serious, unanswered questions about the birth of Harry and Meghan's children. Whispers of surrogacy, mysteries surrounding medical records, speculation about whether the children are biologically Meghan's at all, and, by extension, whether they are truly of royal blood. For the House of Windsor, questions like these are not mere tabloid fodder. They strike at the very heart of monarchy itself: legitimacy, succession, the sacred idea of a bloodline that has endured for centuries. And for Harry, a man who has already abandoned his royal role but still insists on the titles and privileges for his children. This is not simply insulting, it is existential. The fury was immediate. Reports began circulating that Harry was threatening to sue Angela Levin, to drag her into court for daring to challenge what he insists is private family business. His lawyers, it is said, were put on standby. Letters may have been drafted. But here's the problem. By threatening legal action, Harry may have stumbled into the very trap Levin set for him. Because if he truly sues, if this battle makes its way into the courts, the walls of secrecy he has built around his children could come crashing down in the most spectacular way. Subpoenas could be issued, medical records demanded, testimony under oath from doctors, nurses, and witnesses to the births could be forced into the open. In other words, the very privacy Harry claims to defend could be obliterated by his own hand. And this is why Angela's move is so cunning. Because she knows, as every seasoned observer knows, that the one thing Harry cannot risk is transparency. He cannot risk opening the doors of the hospital. He cannot risk letting the world see the unvarnished truth of those carefully staged photographs, those strangely inconsistent birth announcements, those months of secrecy followed by sudden glossy reveals. Levin has placed Harry in an impossible position. Prove it or live forever under suspicion. But suspicion, once seated, is impossible to erase. It grows, it spreads, it mutates into something larger than the initial claim. Whispers of surrogacy are not new in royal circles, but until recently they were dismissed as fringe conspiracy theories, the kind of thing whispered in online forums but ignored by mainstream commentators. Now, with Levin's imprimatur, those whispers have been dragged into the light. And once they are in the open, once they are attached to a respected royal biographer's name, they gain a legitimacy of their own. The timing, too, could not be worse for Harry and Meghan. Their star in Hollywood, once blindingly bright, has dimmed noticeably. The Spotify deal collapsed in embarrassment, with executives calling them grifters behind closed doors. Netflix, once their great patron, has begun to scale back its investment, canceling projects and leaving Meghan's long-dreamed-of animated series dead in the water. Even their signature documentary, the one Meghan reportedly tried to use as leverage to become a judge for the Emmys, failed to earn them the recognition they craved. The Emmy board snubbed her application, leaving her exposed and humiliated. For a couple who built their brand on visibility, awards, and prestige, the rejection cut deep. Against this backdrop of professional decline, Levin's bombshell lands with devastating precision. Because now, the question is not simply whether Harry and Meghan are fading celebrities clinging to relevance. It is whether they have built their entire brand, their children, their family, their claim to royal legitimacy, on a foundation of deception. And if that perception hardens, no Netflix contract, no Oprah interview, no glossy magazine spread will be enough to repair the damage. The most haunting aspect of this scandal is the way it targets Archie and Lilibet themselves. Two innocent children who never asked to be born into this storm now find their very existence questioned. Are they truly Meghan's biological children? Were they carried by surrogates, hidden away while the Sussexes staged carefully controlled narratives of motherhood? Are they legitimate heirs to the royal line, or are they symbols of a deception that could haunt the monarchy for generations? These are not harmless questions. They are daggers aimed at the heart of both a family and an institution, and Harry knows it. That is why his rage burns so brightly. That is why he cannot simply laugh off Levin's claims. That is why his threats of lawsuits feel less like strength and more like panic. A confident man, secure in the truth, would brush aside such rumors with ease. But a man haunted by what the world might discover if the curtains were pulled back? That man lashes out. That man threatens lawyers. That man trembles with fury because deep down, he knows he cannot allow the light to shine too brightly on the shadows. Every silence from Meghan only fuels the speculation. Every refusal to provide clarity looks less like privacy and more like concealment. Every staged photo, every carefully edited documentary, every self-pitying interview begins to look, in retrospect, like part of a vast performance designed to distract from the questions no one dared ask. until now. Royal insiders, speaking quietly to those who still listen, point to contradictions that are impossible to ignore. Why, they ask, if Harry and Meghan so desperately crave privacy, did they parade themselves before Oprah, spilling secrets to an audience of millions? Why, if they wanted to shield their children, did they allow Netflix cameras into their home, their family moments, their supposedly private spaces? Why, if they long to escape the glare of the monarchy, do they cling so desperately to the titles, insisting that Archie and Lilibet be recognized as prince and princess? To the public, it reeks of hypocrisy, and hypocrisy is the most poisonous scent of all. The ripple effects of this scandal are global. In Britain, whispers of constitutional crisis grow louder. In America, even once sympathetic outlets begin to raise eyebrows, questioning whether Harry and Meghan's carefully packaged brand of authenticity is in fact nothing more than manufactured theater. Every headline about Levin's claims only amplifies the sense of doubt. Every denial from Harry, every threat of legal action, only strengthens her hand. Because as Levin herself has pointed out, if her claims were baseless, Harry could laugh them off. He could dismiss her as irrelevant, ignore her entirely. But he does not. He rages. And that rage is more revealing than silence could ever be. Legal analysts warn of the dangers ahead. Should Harry push forward with his threats? Should this matter land in a courtroom, the consequences could be catastrophic. Imagine, they say, the humiliation of sworn testimony from doctors contradicting the Sussex narrative. Imagine the exposure of medical records revealing details that were meant to remain forever hidden. Imagine the devastating blow to a brand already teetering on the edge of irrelevance. What Harry seeks to bury could be forced into the light, under oath, with no spin, no editing, no sympathetic interviewer to soften the blow. And once that truth is out, there will be no going back. Which brings us to the core of this drama, the demand that refuses to die. Prove it. Prove the children are yours. Prove they are Meghan's. Prove they are of royal blood. It is the simplest demand in the world, yet the most explosive. One DNA test could silence the whispers forever. One act of transparency could protect Archie and Lilibet's future, shield them from a lifetime of suspicion. And yet, Harry refuses. Meghan remains silent. And the longer they resist, the more catastrophic the fallout becomes. This is no longer mere celebrity drama. This is a constitutional time bomb ticking beneath the House of Windsor. If Archie and Lilibet are not legitimate heirs, the monarchy faces one of its darkest legitimacy crises in modern history. And Harry, in his fury, is only accelerating the implosion. A prince who once begged for privacy now finds himself exposed in the harshest light possible. A father who claims to protect his children refuses the one step that would secure their future. A husband who rages at critics cannot answer their questions. And a couple who sought freedom have instead trapped themselves in a cage of their own making. Angela Levin has ripped open a wound Harry cannot close. And, until the day he provides proof, or forever lives with the shadow, the legitimacy of his children will remain an open question. Whispered in drawing rooms, debated in tabloids, dissected on talk shows. The scandal will not fade. It will not disappear. It will grow. It will fester. It will hang like a specter over Archie and Lilibet into adulthood. That is the power of Levin's bombshell. That is the burden Harry and Meghan cannot escape. So, why then do they not simply provide the proof? Why cling to secrecy when transparency could free them? The answer, perhaps, lies in the paradox of Harry and Meghan themselves. For years, they have positioned themselves as victims of intrusion, martyrs to media cruelty. Yet, they have also monetized that very intrusion, turned their pain into documentaries, their grievances into books, their family feuds into multi-million-dollar contracts. Their lives are both spectacle and shield, performance and protest. To offer DNA clarity would be to puncture the illusion, to strip away the last layer of mystique they cling to. And without that mystique, what remains? What remains, perhaps, is the truth. A truth too explosive, too destabilizing, too final for them to risk. And so the silence continues. The threats intensify. The fury grows. But the suspicion does not die. It only deepens, casting a shadow not just over Harry and Meghan, but over the institution they abandoned, the monarchy they scorn, and the children they claim to protect. And as this scandal tightens its grip, one haunting question remains. Is Harry protecting his children's privacy, or is he concealing a truth too devastating to admit? Until the day comes when the proof is laid bare, the world will keep asking. The whispers will never stop, and the House of Windsor will live under the shadow of a secret that could change everything. This is Crown and Controversy, unraveling the royals one scandal at a time. Don't forget to subscribe.